basic skills that individuals need to develop. So this today we are going to discuss about decision making skills. Before going into the lesson, what do you mean by, let me know the meaning of decision? What is a decision?
Kind of a solution making at the time.
Is it a solution for all the situations?
Might be wrong, it might be right. So it might, but kind of a conclusion you are taking, like end of the situation.
Yes, correct to some extent, but decision always, for example, if I take like this,
What it's like what you are going to decide.
yes, what you're going to decide is a decision. Yes, correct. But I'm asking the meaning. In other words, the definition by your own words. Normally, in decision making, what you do,
Mostly it's like your own opinion.
your own, yeah, maybe your own opinion on what?
A choice.
Yes, that's the word. Choice. Choice among what?
Among other solutions.
Yes, exactly. Right? So, which means that, suppose that, for example, let's say you are going to marry, right? So now you have three proposals. Your parents have made three proposals to you. Now, at the end of the day, you need to select one, right? One proposal, which means really a decision. So, on this basis, how you define that decision making? On that basis, how you define that? Selecting among
The best.
among the alternatives, right? Selecting the best among alternatives, right? So you have different alternatives. You have one A, B, C, D, E, F, and so on. Maybe let's say 10 alternatives, 10 solutions for a certain problem, right? Suppose that, for example, you have three job options. You applied for job A, job B, job C, D, E, F, and you have been selected by job A, B, C, and D. Now you have four options, and ultimately you need to select one. You can't do all these four options. You need to select the optimum one, best one, ideal one. Ideal is the decision, right? Ideal is the decision, which means that selecting one best option was alternative among many alternatives. Simply a decision. Whether you go this way or that way. You can't go both ways, right? Whether you select this one or that one, whether you buy this mobile phone or that mobile phone, whether you buy this car or that car, whether you marry this lady or that lady, right? So this is a decision, right? Decision is always come with the best solution, best option, right? So decision making. So it is really hard. You have three options. Can you remember how you made the decision in the past? Any incident can you share with us? Any incident in decision making? So this is really hard. Whether you prefer
So I
this.
can say that while choosing the course, whether to choose the course
Yeah.
with Ruhunu University or some other institute. So that was the decision I made to choose this course.
What you consider there?
Recognition.
Okay. So anyway, you have to evaluate some criteria, right? And based on the criteria, you need to make a decision.
I can say recognition and the response, because I contacted mostly all other institutes.
Okay.
I didn't get a proper response, but I contacted you for the first time. Then I remember you gave me a better response.
That's the way, right? So then you made a decision. So likewise, so people make decisions based on that, because people evaluate based on their own knowledge levels, based on some different characteristics, criteria taken into consideration, and ultimately select one option. So that is regarded as a decision, right? So then this is a skill, right? From the decision you make, everything is dependent on, right? So the way how you make a selection is ultimately dependent on your success, right? So Therefore, so this is a skill. Maybe sometimes, for example, you may be worried about a certain decision made, or sometimes you may be really satisfied with a certain decision you made. So your worry or satisfaction is dependent on your ability, the evaluation you made at the decision making time, right? So say therefore, when you are making a decision, obviously, in other words, making a selection out of the alternatives, that selection ultimately depends on your entire success or failure. So therefore, so success or the failure is dependent on what you have already decided. So therefore, you must have a proper evaluation, proper knowledge on decision making, on the circumstances, in other words, right? So therefore, this is a kind of what do you call this, ability to forecast the future, right? Predictive ability of an individual, right? So therefore, basically, we need to think about the situation. So nature of decision making, So let's see what is the nature of decision making, right? So the decision is basically, we discussed the act of choosing one alternative from among a set of alternatives. I guess you can see my slides, right? Is it visible?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So decision act of choosing one alternative from among a set simply means many alternatives, different alternatives. Right? So decision making process, it's a process. It's not a single point of activity, a single one-time happening outcome, right? So it's a process. So therefore, what are the ingredients or what are the steps in that process? First, initially, you need to recognize the problem, recognize the situation, right? Or define the nature of decision situation. For example, there are various, because obviously you are supposed to make decisions regarding various situations or various circumstances, right? So in a particular circumstance that you are in, if you are supposed to make a decision regarding that circumstance, right? Obviously, you need to understand clearly first about the circumstance, right? So, or the situation or the problem that you are in, right? If you are unable to understand the situation or the problem situation, ultimately your solutions or alternatives you are generating may be confused, right? So first you need to understand the problem well, or the decision making situation first. You need to define the decision making situation. For example, let's say you are needing to have a marriage, or you need to get married, right? So now you need to understand the problem, what it is, and you need to define the situation first, right? So you need to gather information related to that particular scenario first, right? So then after identifying the problem situation, then you can generate the alternative solutions, identifying alternatives, choosing best alternative and putting them into practice, right? So that's steps or elements in the process. So basically, what type of decisions we need to make? So basically, we discuss about what is decision. Then decision making is a process, right? This decision making is a process, and what decisions we need to make. There are various types of decisions, right? So we have program decision. We have program decision. What is a program decision? For example, let's say every morning you get breakfast. Let's say bread and dal you get. So then are you, let's say, do you need any further effort to think much more things relating to that particular decision? That is a kind of a program decision. That's like uh, no mental effort, more mental effort is not necessarily needed, right? In a program decision, just to implement, right? No need of evaluation because that has been already programmed. Having meals for thrice a day, right? That is a program decision. What are the program decisions you are making? Give me some examples. Program decisions are routine. So all these are programmed. Once, let's say, if someone is reaching to 55, then obviously he need to be retired. That is a program decision. In case of a sudden death, say somebody in our organization met with an accident and died. Is it a program decision?
No.
Now what we need to do? In that case, we need to hire one. Then for that, we need to evaluate different type of peoples and get interviewed, then ultimately evaluated and select one. So that is an unprogrammed decision. So let's say
Can you say
paying
that the problems related to leave are always referred to the policy to solve?
policy.
If any problems related to leave are solved by
Leave.
the policy related to leave types, rules and regulations. Yeah, if any case like any problem related to leave, that's always related to leave problems, and we have refer the policy. So that's a kind of a program decision we are taking.
Exactly. When you have a policy, for example, if each employee is given 21 days year annually, right? In case 21 annual leave is a program decision. If someone is taking his annual leave, so that is a program decision. Well, already we know that. So that has been already programmed. We know that. But in case, in case, let's say, out of the 21, say, suppose that if someone is have taken all the 21 leaves, right? Which means that he is no longer entitled for having another leave. In that case, he is having a leave. Is it a program decision or unprogram decision? I have already utilized my 21 days allowed to me, right? So in that case, if I'm taking so much leave, except out of the 21, let's say I have taken 26 days annually leaves, right? That is beyond the 21 days. The 4 additional days, 5 additional days taken. Those 5 additional days unprogrammed. But in case if someone is following rules and regulations of the company policies, having leave based on those policies is a program decision. So program decisions are there. Decision that is fairly structured or recurs with some frequency. Recurs, which means that routine, all the routine decisions are program decisions, routine decisions. Let's say, for example, for let's say ordering, procurement. Procurement is a routine decision, right? Retirements, purchasing at the end of the stock, all the recurrent expenditures. Budgeting is a program decision. Government introduces a budget for each year, and in that budget, they have already estimated how they spend. What are the incomes and what are the expenses? That is a program decision. But except like, for example, COVID happened, and for the COVID, the previous budget, they have not allocated any funds for kind of a COVID situation. So now it's an unprogrammed decision. We need to allocate some money for the sudden event. Disaster happened. And with that, we need to allocate some more money for the recoveries. That is an unprogrammed decision. A sudden, let's say, sudden fire took place. Then with that, two buildings totally damaged and 3 employees died. And we need to recover. For that recoveries, we need more money. We need to allocate money. So allocation is money is an unprogrammed decision. It has not been programmed. For that, we need to exert more mental effort for making such type of evaluations and making decisions, unprogrammed decisions. But the program decisions already no mental additional effort, and people make, right, routinely and programmedly. So they have been already programmed. More mental effort, more any evaluation of mental efforts, they make simple. So that is a program decisions, right? Structured decisions. And we have non-programmed decisions. So non-programmed decisions are so much dangerous because with those type of decisions, sometimes you may be 100% successful, or maybe sometimes you may be lost. වෙන දේ තමයි අපිට වැදගත්. People may react in different way. People will defend in different ways to those type of things. But the important thing is how we make decisions. Right? කොහොමද අපි මේ තීරණ ගන්න කියන එකයි වැදගත්. Unprogrammed decisions තමයි very serious. මොකද ඒක අපිට අපේ හැකියාව. Programmed decisions no issue. No issue. That has already been programmed by thinking and by proper planning. Right? But in case if you have unprogrammed decisions, right? So you must be highly careful and you must be competent enough for dealing that kind of decisions. A decision that is relatively unstructured and occurs much less often than programmed decision. හැමදාම උදේ 8ට කනවා. හැබැයි ආපහු දවල් 12ට කන්න. හැබැයි දවල් 10ටත් කන්න උනොත් මොකද වෙන්නේ? And also we have different types of decisions, and we have conditions under which we need to make decisions. Conditions under which we need to make decisions. What conditions do we have? Different conditions. What are the conditions? There are 3 conditions: certainty, risk, and uncertainty. Certainty, we are 100% sure after 1 hour there will be rain. Definitely there will be rain after 1 hour. 100% certain the possible outcomes will be there. In that case, we can highly, අපි දන්නවා දැන් කුඩයක් ගත්ත එක අපි දන්නවා තව පැයකින් definitely වහිනවා. එහෙනම් දැන් කුඩයක් ගත්ත එක වාසිද නැද්ද? දැන් කුඩයක් ගන්න එක වාසිද නැද්ද?
වාසි සර්.
වාසි. loss එකක් නෙවෙයි තමන්ට. අපි හිතනවා ලබන මාසෙ වෙනකොට share market එක 200% increase වෙනවා. ලබන මාසෙ වෙනකොට අපි හිතමු ලබන සතියේ වෙනකොට 200% share market exactly all share price index will be increased. අද කරන්නේ right million 50ක් දීලා shares මිලදී ගන්න. 5 million invested in share market and buy shares today. දැන් මොකද වෙන්නේ? 5 million ලබන සතිය වෙනකොට 200% increase වෙනවානේ ලබන සතිය වෙනකොට. එහෙනම් 5 million 200% වැඩි වුණාම කීයක් වුණාද? profit ගන්න පුළුවන් නේ? Exactly sure. අපි දන්නා අපිට ගන්න පුළුවන්. certain. එහෙනම් certain එකේදී decision making පිළිබඳ කිසි ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැනේ. අපි හිතමු ගෑන් ළමයෙක් ඉන්න අපේ මේ course එකේ අපේ ළමයෙක් බඳිනවා. ඒ ළමයා බැන්දන් පස්සේ ජීවිතය 100% සාර්ථක වෙනවා කියලා 100% sure. ජීවිතය සාර්ථක වෙනවා. අරයා බැන්දෝ ජීවිතය 100% සාර්ථක වෙනවා. certain. sure නම් ඉතින් කිසි බයක් නැතුව බඳින්න පුළුවන් නේ. දැන් ඕගොල්ලෝගේ පිරිමි ළමයි ගිහිල්ලා ගෑල් ළමයෙක්ගෙන් අහනවා ඔයා මට කැමතිද? ඔයා මම බඳින්න කැමතිද? මට නම් කියන්න බෑ. මට තව ටිකක් කල් දෙන්නකෝ. මට තව ටික අම්මගෙන් අහනවා. තව ටිකක් අපි ආශ්‍රය කරමු. එහෙම කියලා කියනවා. එතකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? Then the situation is not certain, right? Uncertain. හරිද? දැන් මොකද වෙන්නේ? We can't clearly predict what will happen in the near future. So there is uncertain. So we have uncertainty, right? So do we have this type of situations? Certainty? Do we have in our day-to-day lives? What are the things that we are having? Certain things. We can really predict, there will be this and there will be that. And we can 100% sure that will happen. Give me some examples for those kind of things. Examples?
So can we get like this? What we are going to wear? What we will have lunch or dinner?
I didn't get that. Repeat it again.
Like for the certainty, can we get like what we going to wear or what we going to eat for lunch? That will be certain.
Is that certain? Suppose that you are planning to have bread and some bowl for lunch. Will it be possible? Exactly. Yes. So in today's world, obviously there are no such certain things. We are in really uncertain world. There is nothing related to the certainty. So which means there are no certain things in the world. but we believe that there are certain conditions under which certain conditions are there uh, based on some assumptions. But reality is we are in a world, we are really in an uncertain world. So if all the things certain, no need to make decisions. We can assign buttons. We can assign the automated buttons to do the things because everything programmed, and we believe that everything happened as it is. But we have these kind of assumptions, conditions, certainty. We need to, certain conditions are there. Assume that there are, and in those conditions we are supposed to make decisions, and decision making becomes very easy in those certain conditions. And the exact opposite is the uncertainty. And in between you have risk. Those are the conditions under which in between. So you have some conditions in between the risk, certainty, and uncertainty. High uncertainty and low certainty. In between, you have the risk. In between, the conditions in between those two conditions, extreme conditions, are known as risk, which means that moderate certainty and moderate uncertainty. So we have some instances. In those instances, you also are supposed to make decisions. Okay? So those are the conditions under which we are supposed to make decisions. Right? So, and these two conditions especially, right? So if the results is really uncertain, right? In that case, you need to make a decision. For example, we can't exactly say that there is a high uncertainty that share prices will go up or down. We can't predict, right? There is a high certainty. So with that high certainty, you make a decision. You invest $5 million today into the share market, 5 million rupees into the share market. එතකොට 100ට 200ක් ඉහළ යන්නත් පුළුවන්, 100ට ඍණ 200ක් මිල පහළ යන්නත් පුළුවන්. දැන් පහළ ගියොත් ඕගොල්ලන්ට totally loss එකක්. flight එකකට නැග්ගාම land එක destination එකට reach වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්, ගුවන් යානය අතරමඟදී කඩා වැටෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. එහෙනම් අපි ඕක පදනම් කරගෙන අපි තීරණයක් ගන්න ඕනේ ෆ්ලයිට් එක යනවාද නැත්නම්. Level of ambiguity and chances of making a bad decision is dependent on these three conditions. නේ අපි හිතමු uncertainty එක වැඩි නම් ඕගොල්ලන්ගේ decision එක bad වෙන්න තියෙන සම්භාවිතාවය වැඩි. uncertainty එක වැඩි නම් මොකද අපි දන්නේ නැහැනේ. දැන් අද 150 ලක්ෂ 50ක් ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරනවා ෂෙයා මාකට් එකේ අපිට හරියට කියන්න බෑ ලබන සතිය වෙනකොට share price එක increase වේද කියලා.
Basically, it's only a prediction. There is no guarantee, right?
No guarantee. All the things will be, for example, you promise someone to come tomorrow for certain activity to be done. That is kind of a prediction. We can't exactly say like that. Sometimes we may die by tonight, by a thunder or storm. So uncertainty. If there is high uncertainty, the possibility for making a bad decision is high. If there are high possibility for certainty, the possibility for making a good decision is if you are making, let's say, if the condition is moderate, is risky, in that case, you are quite 50% has a possibility to make that you are being successful, or 50% for being failure. So that's how the conditions, those conditions make us good decision makers or bad decision makers. That's dependent on the conditions we are in, right? So therefore, which means that we are really talking about now, or nowadays, or the society, the environment we are in, the conditions we are in are totally uncertain. Phenomenally, that is proven to be true, right? Phenomenally, that is proven to be true, that we are in an uncertain world. So which means that possibility for making our decisions really bad. So which means that we are always making bad decisions. Decision making conditions, state of certainty. So that is definition of certainty. So state of risk, again definition. Then next one, decision making uncertainty. Right, so we discussed in detail all these three. A condition in which decision makers does not know all the alternatives, the risk associated with each, or the likely consequences of each alternatives. Does not know. Next important one, the classical model of decision making. There are basically two decision making models. අපි මේකට කියනවා classical model කියලා. Classical model කියන්නේ හැමතිස්සෙම rational way of decision making. What is rational? Logic. When you are going to make a certain decision, you highly dependent on logic, science based, right? So logic, judgmental decision making. You. Let's say if you want to make a decision relating to a certain condition or relating to a certain outcome or certain situation, the situation is really judged. What are the possible consequences? What are the alternative options you are having? And your alternatives evaluated. You understand the problem first. Decision-making situation is properly defined, understand, gather more information, then alternative solutions, alternative options are there. Right? Those one by one you evaluate them and what benefits each generate for you. And what is the most benefited one, you evaluate based on such evaluations, factual informations, and you finally find the best option, and best option is evaluated. So that's the rational decision making. Right? Rationality here means that logic, you get factual informations, you consider each factor one by one, whether each factor mostly benefited to you or not. Right? So that is rational decision making. So there are, for the rational decision making, there are different steps to be followed, and we'll discuss those steps one by one. Right. So before going to those steps, we have this explanation under this classical model. A prescriptive approach to decision. What is prescriptive approach? What is prescriptive approach? We are prescribed, we are advised, we are taught, we are guided to follow this. This is a classical model. This is a model, and you should follow this. You must follow this. There is a prescriptive model. Prescriptive here means that we are guided, we are advised to follow. Definitely, you must follow this, right? Prescriptive approach to decision making that tells managers, that tells us, for example, how we should make decisions, that we are guided, that how we make decisions, how we should make decisions. It assumes that managers are logical and rational. And so in this model, basically, it assumes that we are rational. We are rational people. We always make decision based on judgment. Right? අපි තර්කානුකූල මිනිස්සු නිකන් මෝඩයෝ නෙවෙයි කියලා මේකෙන් උපකල්පනය කරනවා. මිනිස්සු සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ජජ්මන්ටල්. මිනිස්සු හරියට සූක්ෂම විදියට හිතනවා. හිතලා අපි කියන්නේ රැෂනල් කස්ටමර් කෙනෙක් කියලා. රැෂනල් කස්ටමර් කෙනෙක් කියන්නේ customer, whether he or she purchases a certain good or not is determined by himself or herself. That depends on him or her. He evaluates, he considers about his or her budget, and he evaluates the benefits of buying that particular product. Right? ඒක නිසා අපි කියනවා customer කෙනෙක් අන්දන්න බෑ. නේ? නැත්නම් අන්දන්න පුළුවන් rational customer කෙනෙක් නෙවෙයි නම් ඕන භාණ්ඩයක් අපිට යාට ඇඟේ ගහලා විකුණන්න පුළුවන්. Right?
Most of the people nowadays they go with the reviews. So whoever used that product earlier, they go and check what are the reviews they have given on the product.
Yes, exactly. So that is rational customer. Right? Especially when you go for the internet buying, where for example, e-marketing or electronic buying, you go for the reviews. Not only that, but also in physical buying as well. You simply ask the previous users the benefits. නේ අපි උනත් එහෙමනේ. දැන් කාර් එකක් අලුතෙන් මාපු එකක් ගත්තු ගමන් කාර් එකක් ෂොප් මාකට් එකක ගිහිල්ලා නවත්තපු ගමන් කවි දෙනෙක් ඇවිල්ලා අහනවා පෙට්‍රල් කීයක් වැඩ කරනවද ඔකේ? හොඳයිද? ගැස්සෙනවද? නැද්ද? හොඳයිද? මේ කොහොමද අලුත් වහන්නේ? අහන්නේ නැද්ද? නේ? අහනවා. දැන් මං කාර් එක අලුතෙන් අරගෙන නවත්තන හැම තැනකදී මිනිස්සු වට වෙලා අහනවා මේ මහත්තයා ඔගේ පෙට්‍රල් කොච්චර වැඩ කරනවද? පෙට්‍රල් කොච්චර වැඩ කරනවද ඔගේ? කීයටද ගත්තේ? කොහෙද ඔක්ෂන් එකෙන්මද ගත්තේ? කීයක් වුණාද මෙහෙට ගෙන්නනකොට? comfortable. This is reviews. What do you call this? Rational customers. So get the information. They evaluate, right? Evaluate all different options. Then steps in rational decision making process. Steps in rational decision making process. First, recognize and define the situation. Right? Recognize and define the situation. Already we explained, when you are going to make a certain decision relating to a certain point or certain reason. Suppose, for example, you are supposed to get married, right? So now you have two proposals. Now you need to define the situation first, what we are in and where we are in, what we are going to do. What is the real our problem? මොකද දැන් අපේ තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි තනියෙන් ඉපදුණා. දැන් තනියෙන් මැරෙන්න බෑ. තනියෙන් මැරෙනවා. දැන් මේ මැරෙන ඉපදිලා මැරෙන කාලය තුන තව මොකක් හරි ජැක් එකක් ගන්න. නේ? ඒකනේ තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නේ. තනියෙන් ඉන්න බැරි කෙනෙක්. තනියෙන් ඉපදුණා, තනියෙන් මැරෙනවා. තනියෙන් ඉන්න බැරි එක නෑ ප්‍රශ්නේ. ඒක නිසා තව එක්කෙනෙක් එක්ක ජොයින් වෙන්න ඕන. නේ? ඒකනේ ප්‍රශ්නේ. නැත්නම් ඕක නිරාකරණය කරගන්න පුළුවන් නම් තනියෙන්ම ඉන්නත් පුළුවන්. Now we understand the problem first. නේ? දැන් problem එක identify වෙන්නේ නැත්නම් problem එක අපි identify කරගත්තේ නම් අපි තාමත් තනිකඩ. අපිට ඇඟට දැනුනේ නැති නිසානේ අපි තනියෙන් ඉන්නේ. තාම මැරි කරන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ problem එක deadless දැනන තරමට තමයි විවාහය ඉක්මන් වෙන්නේ. problem එක අපි define කරගත්තා. දැන් මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ? ඕගොල්ලන්ට කාර් එකකට පුදුම ඇම්මක් තියෙනවා නම් නේ ඇම්ම වැඩි වෙන තරමටනේ කාර් එක ඉක්මනට ගන්නෙ. නේ මොබයිල් ෆෝන් එකකට ඇම්ම වැඩි වෙච්ච තරමටනේ ඉක්මනට ගිහිල්ලා මොබයිල් ෆෝන් එකක් ගන්න. ඇම්ම අඩු වෙච්ච තරමට ඔක බයින් බිහේවියර් එක ටිකක් ඩිලේ වෙනවනේ. නේ? the rational decision making ලා makers ලා අර ඇම්ම වැඩි වෙච්ච තරමට ඉක්මන් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. problem එක ඉස්සෙල්ලා define කරා. ඊට පස්සේ මොකද කරන්නේ? problem එක identify කරගත්තා. නේ? recognize the defined situation. Recognize and define the situation. දැන් alternatives හදා ගන්න. එකක් කෙහෙල් කොටයක්, අනිත් එක පොල් ගහක්, අනිත් එක පුවක් ගහක්. නේද? අනිත් එක හොස් ගහක්. නේ? ඔය වගේ define කරගන්න එකේ ගස් වර්ග. දැන් මොකද කරන්නේ? identify the alternatives. දැන් alternatives තියෙනවා. පන්තියේ දෙකක් ඉන්නවා. නේ? එහා ගෙදර එකක් ඉන්නවා. අහවල් වත්තේ තුනක් ඉන්නවා. නේ? තව කොහෙද තියෙන්නේ? alternatives බලනවා. යන තැන බලනවා alternatives. තමන්ගේ මොඩල් එකට ගැලපෙනවා කියලා. දැන් ඔන්න හදාගත්ත ක්ලික් වුණා තුනක් විතර තියෙනවා. දැන් මොකද කරන්නේ? ඒවා evaluate කරනවා. evaluate කරනවා. එයා ආශ්‍රය කරනවා. අරයාගේ හොඳ නෑ. එයාගේ කට වැඩි, අරයාගේ නාහේ වැඩි, අරයාගේ කොණ්ඩේ වැඩි. නේ? අරයා නිකන් කොල්ලෙක් වගේ. නේ? ඔක්කොම තියෙනවා නාහෙමදි. නේ? ඔය එක එක ඒවා evaluate කරනවා. දැන් මොකද කරන්නේ? evaluate alternatives. Right? Then select alternative. දැන් ඔන්න evaluate කරලා අන්තිමට එකක් තෝරගත්තා. ඒක තමයි ලෝකේ ඉන්න නරකම එක. එහෙමත් වෙන වෙලාවල් තියෙනවා. නේ? අන්තිමට ගහලා තියෙන්නේ මල ජරාවකට ජැක් එක. එහෙමත් වෙනවා තෝරලා වැඩි. ඒකත් අපේ decision making වැරද්ද. rational decision making කෙනෙක් නම් best option එක තෝරගන්න. තෝරලා ඒ හොඳම option එක තමයි තෝරගන්න. හරිනේ? දැන් මගේ යාළුවෙක් හිටියා මම හිතන්නේ proposals 50ක් 60ක් විතර බැලුවා. මේක කැමති වෙන්නෙම නෑ. ඒ කියන්නේ ගෙවල් දොරවල් බලන්න යනවා කියලා යන්නේ ඒක තැන් වලට මම හිතන්නේ 25කට 50කට එහා පැත්ත විතර ගියා. අවුරුදු 5ක් 6ක් විතර හෙව්වා. හොයලා ගිහිල්ලා මොකක් හරි අඩුවක් අරගෙන එනවා. එක්ක නාහේ වැඩි කියන, එක්ක තාත්තා කතා කරේ නැහැ කියන, එක්ක නැත්තම් ගෙදර වැට හොඳ නැහැ කියනවා, එක්ක නැත්තම් පරණ කාර් එකක් කියනවා. පාවිච්චි මහා විකාර evaluations, එක judgments, එක criteria දාගන්න. බැරි වෙලා කොහොම බලන් ඉඳලා අන්තිමට එකකට යන්තම් කැමති වුණා. දැන් ඉතින් හොඳ පෞල් ජීවිතයක් ගත කරනවා. ළමයි ඉන්නවා හොඳ පෞල් ජීවිතයක් ගත කරනවා. කිසි ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. හරි? ඉතින් මට සමහරක් වෙලාවට කල්පනා වෙනවා අපි මං උනේ මොකටද කියලා. මේ මොන කරුණයකටද කියලා හිතෙනවා. සමහරක් වෙලාවට. ඉතින් එතකොට අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම තේරුම් ගන්න පුළුවන් මම මේ කියන කතාවේ පැහැදිලි අර්ථය. එතකොට මගේ යහළුවා හොඳ රැෂනල් කස්ටමර් කෙනෙක්. හොඳ රැෂනල් ඩිසිෂන් මේකර් කෙනෙක්. ඒකට එයාට කිසි worry එකක් නැහැ. හරි? මොකද he evaluated everything and find the best one. right? එතකොට එහෙම එක තමයි rational decision making. හරි? දැන් අපි හිතනවා නම් චෛත්‍ය මේක ගැන කිසි worry එකක් නැහැ රෝණ යුනිවර්සිටි එකේ සිලෙක්ට් කරලා that is the rational decision making. DHRM රෝණ කරපු එක ගැන කිසි worry එකක් නැහැ. I'm really satisfied. Still I'm really satisfied with it. Which means that you have evaluated well everything and you have selected the one, the best one ever you had. Right. Evaluate, then select the alternative. Then once you select, that can be implemented. Implemented simply means that you implement the decision. ආවලා බඳිනවා තෝරගත්තු එක බඳිනවා. නේ තෝරගත්තු එකට register වෙනවා. දැන් diploma එක තෝරගත්ත register වුණා. Then after evaluating, you need to follow up. So follow up and evaluate results. Right? So you need to follow up. It is whether it is still satisfying my requirements or not. You need to follow up as well. Right? So these are the steps of rational decision making process. දැන් හොඳම උදාහරණය තමයි follow up කියන එක. අපි හිතමු මේ කාර් එකක් දැන් Tamanට ප්‍රවාහන අවශ්‍යතාවයක් ඕනි. කාර් එකක් ගන්න ඕනි. That is the problem identification. නේ කාර් එකක් ගන්න ඕනි. Decision situation. wife බනිනවා, ළමයි බනිනවා, කාර් එකක් නැහැ අපිට එළියට බහින්න බෑ. නේ මට වැඩට යන්න බෑ වෙලාවට හැමදාම පරක්කු වෙනවා. public transport එකේ delay වෙනවා. හරි මහන්සි. ඔන්න problem එක define කරගත්තා. දැන් ඒක නිසා all these things urge me to buy a car. Right? Then options. මොනවාද options? taxi එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන් එකක්. තව එකක් තමයි hire කරගෙන යන්න පුළුවන්. දෙකයි. තුන්වෙනි එක කාර් එකක් මිලදී ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකෙත් options තියෙනවා. අලුතෙන්ම කාර් එකක් මිලදී ගන්නවද? second hand එකක් මිලදී ගන්නවද? නේ? අලුතෙන් එකක් මේ import කරනවද? කොහොම තියෙන options ගොඩක්. එතකොට මේ options සියල්ලම consider කරන්න ඕනේ. ඊට පස්සේ තමන්ගේ budget එක කොච්චරද? budget එකට හරියන option එකක් හම්බ වෙනවද? ඒකත් බලන්න. එතකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ? මේ options ටික ඔක්කොම evaluate කරන්න. හරිනේ? comfortability එක, petrol usage එක, නේ mileage එක, service cost එක, maintenance cost එක, නේ ඔය ඔක්කොම evaluate කරනවා. ඊට පස්සේ දැන් අපි බලන්නේ අඩුම petrol intake එකකින් වැඩිම traveling time එක. නේ එතකොට ඕකනේ බලාපොරොත්තුව. දැන් අපි බෙස්ට්ම තියෙන්නේ hybrid එකක් නම් සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ලංකාවේ ලීටර් එකකින් සාමාන්‍යයෙන් 1500cc 1500cc වගේ නම් සාමාන්‍යයෙන් 20-25 වගේ average නේ per liter ලීටර් එකකට කිලෝමීටර් 25ක් 30ත් අතර ප්‍රමාණයක් තමයි මැක්සිමම් තියෙන්නේ. දැන් අපි ওই වගේ එකක් ගත්ත කියලා හිතමුකෝ. දැන් අපි ෆලෝ අප් කරනකොට බලනවා අපි පෙට්‍රල් ගහලා ඇත්තටම 25ට වඩා වැඩියෙන් යනවාද? 25ට අඩුවෙන් යනවාද කන්සම්ප්ෂන් එක? that is follow up. නේ අවශ්‍ය comfortability එක maintain වෙනවද? delay එක නැති වෙනවද? නේ maintenance cost එක කොච්චරද? that is following up. අපි මේක සාමාන්‍යයෙන් කරනවා නේ එදිනදා ජීවිතේ. ඒතර මේ ඔක්කොම එකතු වෙලා තමයි අපි කියන්නේ rational decision making කියන්නේ. හරිද? දැන් ඔක අපේ ගොඩක් දුරට වෙනවා. ඉතින් ඕක එක ස්ටෙප් එකක් හරි මිස් වුණොත් අපේ ඩිසිෂන් එක වරදින සම්භාවිතාවය වැඩි. ඒකට ගොඩක් අපි කියනවා මේක තමයි හොඳම ක්‍රමය. ඒතර ආයතන වලට විශේෂයෙන් මැනේජර්ස්ලා වුණාම ඔබ තීරකයෝ වුණාම ඔබ ඩිසිෂන් මේකර්ස්ලා වුණාම කම්පැනි එක අනාගතයේ ඉහළ තනතුරු දරනකොට මේක තමයි recommended method එක. මේක තමයි දැනට ලෝකයේ පිළිගත්තු සම්මත ක්‍රමය හොඳ ක්‍රමය විදියට rational decision making classical model එක තමයි තීරණයක් ගන්නකොට කරන්න පුළුවන්. තීරණයක් ගන්නකොට කියන්නේ එහෙනම් මොකද්ද මේ තීරණයක් ගන්නවා කියන්නේ? making a best option. Selecting one option out of the different options, different alternatives. Selecting the most viable option. Right? In selecting most viable options, these are the steps to be followed. That is recommended, and this is the ideal method guided. The ideal method recommended us to follow. Right? So this is the one considered best in the management world. That is known as rational decision making model, or in other words, that is known as classical decision making model. So these are the explanation given on the right side. Explain more than enough, right? So just go through this. This is a step and detail and example, right? Again, that was explained more than enough. Again, this is if you want, just go through it one by one explanation. Each step one by one explanation in different slides. Right? That was again explained in detail. Right? Make up now example. That is the second option, identifying alternatives, evaluating alternatives. Right? There are various techniques for evaluation alternatives. For example, if you are going to buy shares, right? There are different techniques to evaluate shares. Market equity ratios, different types of ratios, liquidity ratios, financial instruments are there to evaluate those one by one, right? So different cost benefit analysis, different mathematical techniques when it comes to the evaluation decision making techniques, right? Evaluation, right? Maths ඔයගොල්ලෝ ගිය semester එකේ ඉගෙන ගන්න ඇති probability sampling, probability theory එක ගැන, decision making theories ගැන, decision tree analysis නේ, mathematics වල ගොඩක් දුරට business field එකේ mathematical modeling තියෙනවා decision making වලට support කරන. investment decisions, raw material purchasing decisions, hiring decisions නේ, ඒවා විවිධ වර්ගයේ marketing decisions නේ, budgeting decisions, supply chain decisions, ඒ වගේ විවිධ transportation mode decisions, transportation මොන transport mode එකද පාවිච්චි කරන්න ඕනේ නේ, destination එකට යන්න අඩුම cost එක පාවිච්චි කරන channel එක මොකද්ද, supply chain එක, ඒ වගේ විවිධ techniques තියෙනවා marketing end customer reach වෙන්න පුළුවන් අඩුම channel mode එක, ඒ වගේ recruitment කරන්න ගියොත් best recruitment method එක, most benefited recruitment method එක, selection method එක, performance appraisal method එක. ඒක නිසා organization එක ගන්න පුළුවන් ඕනම වර්ගයේ decision එකකට support කරන mathematical modeling තියෙනවා. management science කියලා අපි ඒ field එකට කියනවා. නැත්නම් operational design decision making කියලා කියනවා. අනාගතයේදී සියලු මාතෘකා ඉගෙන ගන්න හම්බ වෙයි ඔයගොල්ලන්ට. ඒ හැම දෙයක්ම පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ mathematics පැත්ත decision making මේ evaluate කරන්නේ විවිධ options නේ. දැන් හොඳම උදාහරණය තමයි internal recruit කරන එක external recruit කරනවට වැඩිය වාසිද company එකට. අපිට ඕනේ employees ලා 5 දෙනෙක් බඳව ගන්න. ඉතින් 5 දෙනාගෙන් අපි හිතමු employees ලා 5කගෙන් එක්කෙනෙක් බඳව ගන්න. දැන් මේක internal recruit කරගන්න එකද හොඳ external recruit කරගන්න එකද? Different options. Whether we go for the internal recruitment or external recruitment, we need to do some evaluations, cost benefit analysis for that. නේ? අපි කල්පනා කරනවා internally ඉන්න කෙනෙක් promote කරලා recruit කරගන්න එකද හොඳ නැත්නම් externally අලුතෙන්ම කෙනෙක් join කරගන්න එකද හොඳ නේ company එකට මොකද්ද වැඩිම වාසි evaluation එක cost benefit analysis එක mathematical modeling එක නේ company එකේ අපි හිතමු advertising කරොත් 10%කින් sales 100ට කොච්චරකින් generate වෙනවද advertising කරොත් sales generate කරගන්න පුළුවන් advertising සහ sales අතර relationship එකක් තියෙනවා option එකක් අපිට බලන්න පුළුවන් evaluate mathematical modeling හරි හොයි විදියට විවිධ තීරණ වලට අපිට පුළුවන් විවිධ ඒවා ගන්න mathematical modeling ඒ නිසා මේ හැම එකම මෙතනදී උගන්වන්න බෑ අපි මෙතනදී evaluation එකක් තියෙන බව තේරුම් ගන්න we need to understand that we are supposed to do some mathematical calculations to evaluate different types of alternatives for the same problem in decision making, right? So once we evaluate each option, then we can understand whether identify which option generate most benefits and that need to be selected, right? එතකොට මේ තියෙනවා එක evaluation technique එකක් නේ පළවෙනි alternative එක feasible ද company එකට වාසිද yes නම් ඊළඟ option එකට යන්න no නම් ඒ option එක අයින් කරලා දාන්න නේ දැන් is the alternative satisfactory නේ දැන් ඒ option එක feasible නම් yes නම් අපි බලනවා ඊළඟට ඒක satisfactory ඒක ප්‍රයෝජනවත් අපිට නේ ඒක no නම් අපි ignore කරලා දාන්න yes නම් ඊළඟ step එකට යන්න affordable අපිට දරා ගන්න පුළුවන් දෙයක no නම් අයින් කරලා දානවා yes නම් ඊළඟට action එකට ඔන්න ඔය වගේ simple analysis එකක් කරන්න පුළුවන් වගේ different analysis techniques තියෙනවා right දැන් ඔය විවිධ analysis techniques වලින් අපි තෝරගන්නවා best option එක right best option එක implement ඊට පස්සේ අපි follow up results ඔන්න ඔය ටික තමයි අපි කරන්නේ rational decision making model එක. ඊළඟට අපි කතා කරනවා තව model එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ model එක තමයි ඒ කියන්නේ ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන් decision making models දෙකක් තියෙනවා. classical model එකයි administrative model එකයි. Right? Classical model was already done, that is known as rational decision making model in other words, by another word. right වෙනත් විදියකට කියනවා නම් අපි ඒක කියනවා rational decision making model ඒකටම alternatively අපි කියනවා classical model කියලා. ඊට අමතරව අපිට තව model එකක් තියෙනවා administrative model කියලා තව decision making model එකක්.
Right? So in the administrative model basically there are four assumptions in the administrative model. People make decisions. People make day to day or in formal context or in organizational context may make decisions and when they are making decisions they have information. Basically when making a decision everybody needs certain level of information, right? So based on the information we make decisions, otherwise we can't make good decisions. So therefore, but the problem is we can't get exact information, complete information, perfect information, right? So for example, if you are going to select a particular course, to decide a particular course to decide to do or not is determined by various factors, various information that you are having. Right? You search information and what are the employability, for example, and what is the cost and what are the benefits and what are the losses, and you get more information on a particular course. Depending on that, those information, you finally make a decision whether you pursue that course or not, right? But sometimes the informations you get may not 100% accurate. So therefore,
when a person make a decision at the decision, that person is making that decision, there may be no sufficient availability of data or information. That is known as incomplete data. Right? People always make decisions, as we know, as you know, people make decisions depending on their available data, current data, available data. People know, not suppose people are not going deep analysis about the information when making a decision. They are normally used to do it with available data, current available visible data only, right? So no need, not going any deep analysis about the informations, right? So therefore, the first one is they have, when people make decisions, they have incomplete information and imperfect informations. Incomplete at the same time, imperfect information. So therefore, when you have imperfect information, what will happen to the decision that you are going to do, going to make? Whether it will be successful or maybe a bad decision. Yes, when you have incomplete information on something, for example, you are going to select a particular course, you get information on certain course, right? So then you have a incomplete information, but with that incomplete information, you decided to pursue, you decided to register for that course. In that case, the possibility for getting successful or being making what you call this making your decision successful or failure is determined by the decision that you made, right? So what do you think, whether it will be successful or fail, or make the what is the possibility for being a good decision or bad decision? Whether it is will be a good decision or a bad decision when you do a particular course with incomplete information. Incomplete information with the sense, in the sense that let's say somebody is telling, when you go to this particular course, get it registered, you have a high 80%, more than 80% employability rate. One of your friend is telling that, and depending on that, you register for that course, right? In that case, while following that, following that particular course, you believe that, you recognize that, or in other words, you perceive that that kind of employability is not maintained by that institution, or but by that diploma or particular course. So in that case, there's somebody, the friend that was told, maybe that information was told maybe inaccurate, right? So therefore, that is an incomplete information. It's always people make decisions with incomplete information, right? So there is a rare possibility, there is a very less possibility of having complete information on something. So therefore, people always make decisions with incomplete and imperfect information. So therefore, possibility for making a good decision is very low, which means that, in other words, they are making always bad decisions with incomplete informations, right? Suppose that, for example, you are going to, when you have 100,000 rupees, you are going to invest in a bank, right? So when somebody is telling that, for example, in other words, let's say take another example, somebody is having 100,000, and one of your friend is telling that that you should go to invest for invest that amount in the share market, right? Based on your friends request or information, you go to the share market and invest it, but at the end you realize that that much of return is not already obtained, right? Just after a certain time period. So then obviously you know that that is an incomplete information, right? So therefore, another important consideration is when making always decisions, even when you follow a systematic process like a rational decision making model, ultimately you are making a decision based on your subjective judgments, right? We have own reflexes, we have own judgments, we have own interest, we have own values, which are highly impacted when making a decision. So therefore, these are known as bounded rationality. Bounded rationality in the sense that people are bound to their personal rationalities. Personal rationalities. For example, you may not like interested with people who are very tall. You may be not interested with the people who are having blonde hairs, right? So likewise, maybe you have different interests, you have different values on something, you have different personalities, and those impacts ultimately make the decision. So those are known as bounded rationality. Those rationalities ultimately impact for you to make a good or bad decisions, right? So therefore, most probably your possibility for making a good decision is limited by the fact that the bounded rationality, right? Fact that the bounded rationality, which means that you have own biases towards certain things, certain characteristics of individuals. So therefore, those things may be limited by the fact that those bounded rationalities. So therefore, possibility for making a good decision is limited, right? Now the second one. And the third one, tend to satisfy when making a decision. For example, what is satisfying? Satisfying means committed, right? So for example, I can give you an example. When you go for a site to construct, when you are intending to purchase a land to construct your own house, right? You have main intentions. You have main intentions, like for example, having, for example, basic criteria you consider for buying a land. Basic criteria. What are the basic criteria you consider for buying a land? For example, one is affordability. Second one is proximity to like national schools. Once you born a child, his or her education is the most important thing. So therefore, in order to get easily enrolled into a grade 1, obviously you need to buy a house or construct a house just near to the school, right? That must be within the circle, first line limits, right? So therefore, first circle limits. So therefore, so that is another criteria. Your house must be within the first limits of this first circle. And third one is maybe neighborhood must be in good condition and proximity to the main road. Fourth condition. Once all these conditions met, you immediately make a decision. You don't consider other things, whether the quality of the neighbors and whether sometimes some surroundings or maybe environment relating to that what do you call this land, or once you constructed a house may not be suitable, may not be quality, right? So you the end results or later results you don't consider, you consider only the main criteria which ultimately met, you implement the decision. So that is known as tend to satisfy. Ultimately, that may not be a good decision. That may not be a good decision later on. You realize that the decision you made ultimately a bad decision, because sometimes another neighborhood is maybe a prostitute, or maybe someone is having another neighborhood. Even though you decide you perceive that the neighborhood is very good condition, but their inner quality life cycles and their qualities of life are very bad, right? Or sometimes maybe landslide can be happen, right? Landslide can be happen after a heavy rain, right? So there may be so many bad things happen just after your implementation of the decision. So therefore, which means that you have not considered all the conditions and criteria before making a decision, because you considered only a few criteria, what you thought very important only, right? You thought you decided the very important criteria are 4 criteria. Once those criteria are met, immediately you implement the decision. You didn't consider other criteria, other things. So therefore, but other things may be significant just after you start living in that area, right? So therefore, that ultimately becomes a bad decision. You ultimately at the end you realize that you decided, you have made a bad decision to live on that particular place, right? And the fourth one is escalation of commitment. Fourth one is not there, you can write it down. Fourth one is here, you can see intuition and escalation of commitment. Fourth one, intuition and escalation of commitment. What is intuition? Fourth one. To this point, please write it down. To this point, fourth one, intuition and escalation of. Rather than considering more detail, people obviously make decisions by their own intuition. Intuition means inner knowledge, insight, right? People normally make decisions by their own insight, so that ultimately make good results. Sometimes very bad results. People strictly relying on their own insights, and based on their own insights and feelings, they make decisions. And sometimes the decisions they made in such a way maybe resulted in good results, good outcomes, right? On intuition. And the other one is escalation of commitment. Escalation of commitment. For example, if the share market prices rapidly decreasing, significantly decreasing, you as a person, investor, decides to invest your 1 billion US dollars into the share market in a situation where economic corruption, economic recession exists. Share markets has dramatically gone down, price levels have gone down in a situation where decreasing, where price levels are significantly decreasing. You as a person, investor, determine to invest your billions dollars in the share market. Then people, other investors may laugh at you, claiming that you have crazy mind. But you think that this is the best option. This is the good decision that I'm making. That is escalation of commitment. In the short term, you may be having negative results, but in the long run, you may be having billions and billions of dollars of profits, right? So one example. Another example, at tsunami time duration, what happened was, during the tsunami, at the time tsunami waves hit the coastal area, tsunami, what you call this, the prices, land prices in the coastal area significantly dropped. Nearly, as you know, nearly Golmatara and coastal area land prices significantly dropped. You can buy a 1 acre land at about 10,000 or maybe 100,000 rupees at that time. 1 acre land or 2 acre land, right? Acres and acres of lands at that time, people sold out at very lesser amount of money, right? So at that time, as a person, as an investor, I decided to purchase 50 acres of lands near the coastal area, just at the coastal area, by, let's say, spending my money, 5 million worth of money. And people may be blamed at me that I'm doing mad things or crazy things. But sometimes imagine if I had a land like 50 acres at that time. So now see how much worth it today, right? How much worth it today, right? All the star hotels, high ranking star hotels now being constructed just on the coastal area, right? And I know that, personally know that an acre is sold at nearly 1 billion rupees, right? If I had 50 acres, see how much I can earn, right? So in the long run, I can get more profits, but in the short run, maybe we have a loss. We may have a loss. So therefore, that is known as escalation of commitment. Commitment is escalated. You sacrifice your commitment, right? So those are the, and that is administrative model. When you make a decision that is limited by limited information, that is limited by bounded rationality, that is limited by sacrificing, and that is limited by escalation of commitment. So, and there is a high possibility for making a bad decision with those factors, right? So there are different factors, and those factors ultimately limit the making for good decision. Sometimes there is a these factors determine results to make a good decision, but there are no evidence proof that always these factors make supports for making good decisions. But according to the literature, that satisfying, not the satisfying, the rational bounded rational decision making model, or what do you call this, classical decision making model always make good results when you follow the classical model or rational model when making decision. So therefore, based on that opinion or findings or theoretical arguments, which one you decide the best option out of these two, whether you select prefer the bounded rationality, or what do you call this, administrative model is best, or the other one, administrative, not the administrative, classical model is, you have classical model, administrative model, both models. Out of these two models, which one you prefer best? Then whether you select classical model as best or administrative model as best. Administrative model එකද තෝරන්නේ, classical model එකද තෝරන්නේ. දැන් classical model එක අපි කියනවා පියවර 6ක් අනුගමනය කරනවා. ඒක systematic විදිය, විද්‍යාත්මක විදිය, තර්කානුකූලව අපි ගැටලුවක් හඳුනාගෙන අර පියවර අනුගමනය කළා තීරණයක් ගන්නවා. හැබැයි ඇඩ්මිනිස්ට්‍රේටිව් මොඩල් එකේදී එහෙම කිසිම පියවරයක් නැහැ. තියෙන තොරතුරු ටික පදනම් කරගෙන, පුජ්‍යල බද්ධ කාරණා පදනම් කරගෙන නේ, තමන්ට හිතුනොත් මේක හොඳයි කියලා අර මූලික කාරණා ටික ඉෂ්ට වෙනව නම් විතරක්, එහෙම නැත්නම් තමන්ට හිතෙනවා නම් මේක හොඳයි කියලා ඔන්න ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා, තීරණයක් ගන්නවා. එතකොට ඒ ක්‍රමයද හොඳ, අර ක්‍රමයද හොඳ? Yes, classical model is the best one, right? So we know that even we have three conditions, as we discussed at the beginning, right? We have three conditions. Likewise, you have these three conditions. We know that When you exclude these two conditions, this is because these two conditions are not practical in reality. You can't see in reality, right? But what we can see in reality is this one, uncertainty, right? So therefore, we are supposed to make a decision in the conditions of uncertainty. So in that condition, the possibility for making a good decision is very low. Or in other words, the possibility for making a bad decision is very high. The system determines that. So what we can do is the possibility for high possibility for making a bad decisions can be minimized. That is the only option. The one best thing to do is the possibility for making a bad decision can be minimized by following, right, this type of a process, right? So when you follow this type of a process, right, when you follow this type of a process, administrative model, in other words, the possibility for making a bad decision, right, possibility for making a bad decision is high because you have certain limited information with you. So then with limited information available to you, you make a decision at a glance, right? And you make a decision based on your own bounded rationality. You make a decision based on once the main criteria are met, right? So then the possibility for making a bad decision is very high because the uncertainty, the conditions under which we are in is uncertain, right? So that can be minimized. That can be minimized by following this kind of a model, because this is systematic. You systematically gather information when you have a limited information, but you find more information. You try to find more information. You are not relying with the available information. You are trying to find out more information about the problem, right? Because system urge you to do that. And then after that, you have to find out alternatives. Once you recognize the problem, define the problem, then you can easily find the what do you call this, solutions, alternative solutions, because you can't generate the solution. You can't generate a solution once you identify without identifying the problem properly. අපි සාමාන්‍ය වුණත් කෙනෙක් වැටුණා වුණත් මොකද්ද කරන්නේ? වැටිලා තුවාල වෙලා ලේ ගලනකොට දූවල ගිහිල්ලා අහනවා මොකද්ද? කොහොමද උනේ? මොකද්ද උනේ? කියන්නේ මොකද්ද උනේ? මේ කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? අපි ප්‍රශ්නේ අඳුර ගන්න උත්සාහ කරන්නේ. අපි ප්‍රශ්නේ අඳුර ගන්න මේක කොහොමද වුනේ? මේක මොකද්ද? ඇයි මේ තුවාලේ ඇති උනේ? එතකොට එහෙනම් අපි කිව්වොත් සර්පෙක් කෑවා කියලා. අන්න එහෙනම් අපිට පුළුවන් ටක් ගාලා විසඳුම් හොයන්න. නේ? සර්පෙක් කෑවා කිව්වොත් අපි කියනවා මොන වගේ සර්පෙක්ද කෑවේ? නයෙක්ද පත්තෑයෙක්ද? නේ? අපි අහනවා. ඊට පස්සේ අන්න එතකොට විසඳුම ටක් ගාලා හොයන්න ලේසි. හරිනේ? First, we need to recognize the problem, identify the problem, what has happened, what is happened, how it has happened, where it has happened. Other question tags dala define karagan. Once you are able to define the problem, obviously you can find alternatives easily. Then automatically generates the solutions, right? So then after that, once you have generated many options, then you can evaluate those options one by one in terms of profits and benefits, in terms of profits and expenses, in terms of benefits and losses, right? So then based on your analysis, then finally you can select a one which generate more benefits, more profits to you or to your organization. Then that must be implemented, right? Then once, just after implementation, you can't give it up. Just you need to follow up whether it is generating further results as per the expectation, and follow up and evaluating the results. So that is the process you need to follow in order to minimize the likelihood of making bad decision. By nature, you are supposed to make a bad decision because we know that environment is uncertain, right? There is nothing wrong in you. Naturally, we know that because we make a decision to the best of our knowledge in a situation, but ultimately conditions, environmental conditions ultimately determine the decision was very bad. So therefore, then obviously there is a high possibility for making the decision bad because of the uncertain environmental conditions. So therefore, that conditions can be minimized. That uncertainty, not the uncertainty we can't control the uncertainty, but we can control the decision, right? So we can basically control the decision. How it can be done is by following that kind of a classical model, we can minimize the likelihood of bad decision, minimizing the likelihood of being a bad decision. Here you can see the you are given the additional examples for that. This has been done. This was done last time, and now we are into this process. Satisficing example. For example, these are the 4 points, right? Incomplete information. No need to have another additional slide. Just as I explained, you have incomplete information always, limited information, right? We can't find perfect information on certain things, but we are going to make a decision, right? Then bounded rationality, simply known as bounded rationality, that is personal on-bias rationality. So that is basically dependent on unconscious values, unconscious reflexes, skills, habits, right? And what is satisficing? Satisficing, as I gave you, as an example I gave you. This is the example I gave you. When looking for a site, select the first site visited that meets the basic requirements for transportation, utilities, and price. Right? So if the transportation, utilities, and the price are your main criteria, so once those criteria are met, obviously you make a decision. You buy the site you visited at a glance, right? So therefore, that is satisficing. That may not be correct always. There may be some other significant factors that can impact to make a bad decision, right? So as I told you, sometimes the quality of the neighborhood, the quality of the surroundings of the land, right? Landslides can happen. A prostitute can be lived in the neighborhood. A selfish persons can be lived in the neighborhood person, always interrupting your living conditions, right? So various type of qualities can happen ultimately that may inhibit our good living conditions, right? So this is the possibility for happening just after decision was implemented. So therefore, satisficing is that. And the other one is intuition and escalation of commitment. Intuition is own insight, and escalation of commitment is the example. People buy stock in a company. They sometimes refuse to sell it even after a repeated drop in price, right? So those are the things. And the other one is, apart from these two basic models, another model is group thinking, group team working. Another technique is there. Apart from these basic two models, another model is there, that is group thinking. Group thinking, simply known as team working. team thinking or team decision making. As a team, you make a decision. So therefore, that may be positive or that may be correct always when you make as a team. Because as you know, we learn the possibilities or we learn the strengths, pros of advantages of having team working, because everyone is having a chance to get the leadership and may to be the leaders, and depending on the situation and the time. So therefore, everyone, since everyone is given the chance and opportunity to make a decision, ultimately you have a blend of decisions, blend of brainstorming sessions, blend of decision making, what do you call this, involvements. So that ultimately results to make a very good decision, right? So that is group thinking. Right. So that's all about what I supposed to do today.